Day 14. Recession-proof your finances in 30 days. I'm your boy, Peter Dunn. Beat the Planner. I'm here with the host of Slam Dunk with Ted Dunn, a podcast for ballers. Ted Dunn. Ladies and gentlemen, Ted Dunn.
Welcome back to my dad's show, Day 14. Music by Mr. Kinetic. What's that?
All right. He feels it. All right, guys. Day 14. By the close of business tomorrow, we will be halfway through this 30-day period. A little windy in the studio today, so from time to time you may hear the windows blow against themselves. I don't even know what that means. It's quite the visual. Hey, how's it going? We're starting another week tomorrow. We're going to try this again tomorrow, see what happens. Here's what I know. A lot of the shock of the fact that we're in a global pandemic has started to wear off a little bit. I mean, I am now saying a little bit less and less every day. I can't believe this is our reality. Do you find yourself doing that too? Which is like 4, 5, 7, 95 times a day. You go, I cannot believe this is real. But it is, and I'm saying it less and less. I'm sort of accepting it. So, like many financial problems that occur to a person, whether they know that they're a problem or not, the second they figure it out as a problem, such as we didn't save enough for retirement, we didn't save enough for college, we don't have an emergency fund, anytime you come to the realization that you're in trouble, there's a period of shock. Now, look, it doesn't feel like the last 2 weeks. Usually, if you have a little bit of a financial emergency and you've got a little bit of a shock, it's just a disconcerting feeling. You're just going, oh. But over this last 2 weeks, it's a much bigger shock. Now, let me tell you what's going to happen next. The shock's going to wear off. Your adrenaline's going to wear off. You're not going to believe what I'm about to say. You're going to get bored with the problem, right? You're going to get so bored with the problem, you're going to convince yourself that it's not a problem anymore. We like to say this is a tolerance issue. You become tolerant of our current reality, even though it's suboptimal. Right? So what you'll do is, instead of continuing to grind and try to fix the problem the best you can, you'll just become accepting of it. This isn't necessarily a good thing. Yeah, we need to accept that our reality is different. We need to accept that we need to stay inside until the virus peaks and we can open back up the economy. But when it comes to changing your habits and all those sorts of other things, you can't become complacent. And if you are, I get it. I've been there, and I will become complacent in this journey too. But just understand, one of your biggest dangers in all of this, in terms of your own personal behavior, is the boredom you will experience in the coming weeks as it relates to this new reality. I'm Peter Dunn, CEO of Hey Money. Here's the goal of our 30-day program. Number one, we're trying to cut at least $500 a month. You may have made some huge progress here already in the last 14 days of the show. And that's great. I've heard from a lot of you, and you've cut more than $500 a month, and I really like that. It also gives you the opportunity to press reset on your financial life. If you've ever felt like your financial life was assigned to you or put upon you, you don't have to live that reality. You can reset your financial life. And if you can do it in one of the darkest, deepest, tough financial situations you'll ever deal with, which is right now, then you can make it stick. And finally, we're going to stop guessing. So many people struggle in their finances over time is because they just assume everything's fine when in fact it is not fine. And that is where we're going to turn our attention today, is to employ a calendar to stop guessing that things will be fine. Again, a little bit shorter of a show here today. It's a weekend. I'm installing pendant lights today, so I may not be here tomorrow. I'm not a licensed electrician, although I know how to watch a YouTube video. All right, callheymoney.com is where you can find my team of experts. You can talk to them anytime you want, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern to 9 p.m. Eastern, and they can walk you through any of this stuff we talk about. If you're doing a good job and you want to do it on your own, great. It's designed to do it on your own. But if you want to take it to the next level for about $17.99 a month, you can do that with the offer code CHEESE at callheymoney.com, and someone from my team will be with you. And they will help you. All right, here's what we're doing today. The plan timeline. Okay, here's what I've learned over the last 20 years of doing this. When you're facing a triage situation, right? We are in a triage situation financially. Some of us are already experiencing quite a bit of pain, and we're trying to already recover from that, immediate pain. Others of us are triaging our lack of preparedness. Okay, so there are people who are prepared. There are people who are in pain. But there's this giant group in the middle who are neither prepared nor do they have pain yet. So the triage for them is, how do I make sure I go the right direction? How do I make sure I go toward preparedness as opposed to the pain? Now, everyone on the spectrum will have some pain. It's important you understand that. And I also want you to know, from a judgmental standpoint, there is no judgment. These are observations. I feel just as bad for the people who are in pain, for the people who are going to be in pain, and for the people who knows, if things get bad enough, they could go there too. This show is never about, told you so, should have done it. This is more about, okay, so what now? This is our reality, what now? Hindsight's 20/20. And we can deal with preparing for the next emergency once we get out of this one. But we are a what now organization. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk through the next few months on today's show. We're going to look at 4 different areas of your financial life, and you're going to evaluate what could happen in the next 4 months. Yes, I fully understand that you don't actually know what could happen. I don't either. But that doesn't mean this isn't a valuable exercise. The main goal of this program is to prepare you for this next 30 days, right? And give you some advice. But beyond that, what happens? These are the 4 things we're going to look at today. We're going to, at every step of the way, we want you to evaluate your income, how the strength of it during these different time periods. We want to, oh, by the way, I just realized I'm wearing my family shirt representing Navigate Well-Being Solutions out of Des Moines, Iowa. My friends in West Des Moines, shout out to you all. I know you guys watch the show, but I love you guys. I just interrupted my own show to say that. Savings, what are your level of savings? Will the stimulus give you a pop of savings, or will a lack of income drain your savings down as we go through these different time periods? How about debt? I doubt too many people are going to be paying down debt during this time frame, but do your debt levels remain constant, or do they increase over time? If we look at the 3 categories of people who are already experiencing pain, people in the middle who may go either way, and people who are prepared, there are people on the pain side of things already who are already going deeper into debt to be able to pay the bills. It's important to acknowledge that. And it's important to see this group in the middle, which direction they get pulled in regards to debt. And finally, events. Now, this is a little bit of a strange category. In normal times, what we would say here is, oh yeah, my cousin's getting married 45 days from now, so I'm going to have to spend money to go do that. Or, oh yeah, our vacation's coming up. Or it's spring, we got to mulch outside and put some money into home maintenance. Life's a little different now, as of right now. So, you don't have these big expenditure categories, but there are things that can happen, and you can find them on your calendar. And I'll give you an example in just a moment of, oh, here's an event in which we're going to need some money. Not just regular bills, but unusual things. Let's go ahead and get started. I know April starts on Wednesday, and I know that because Ted, who was our announcer here today, his birthday turns 8 on April Fool's Day. So we'll have him back in and sing him happy birthday on Wednesday. But we're going to call March over. March is not over, and it was the longest March in the history of Marches. Coming off 29-day February, which felt long, March said, ha, 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 hold my beer. Here's a 95-day March. That's what we've just been through. But we're going to say, let's take a look at April and let's evaluate those things that we just talked about, right? Income, savings, debt, and events. All right, so going into April, what is the current, the biggest strength that you have financially during this time? What is the biggest strength that you have financially? Is it you've got plenty of savings? Is it that your income has not been affected yet? Is it that you have no debt or won't go deeper into debt? Or is it that you've got no unusual events? So just the other day, in a fit of irony, our license plate renewal documents came in the mail. I could pull them up on my email here. We could do a GoFundMe to pay for them. What's really odd is we're not driving anywhere. We're in walking distance to a CVS, a couple other places that we can go get supplies. We're having things delivered. We're not really getting in our car. So there's this irony that might be our reality for the next 2 or 3 months. And one of an unusual bill we have are our license plate renewals. So, there's some irony there. But that's an example of an event. So what is the biggest strength you have going right now? If you're taking notes, or this is a way for me telling you, maybe you should take notes. Maybe even grab a calendar. Should have said that at the beginning. So you don't have to do this now, but do it later. Go look at a calendar coming up in April. Look at how many pay periods you've got in that month. Look at any unusual renewals. Maybe you've got a 6-month car insurance renewal or something coming due. Try to understand what's going well for you in April. And then, and this isn't fun, but I never said this was all going to be fun, try to identify the biggest threat in your financial life in April specifically. Now, it is my feeling that in most cases going forward, over these next couple months we're going to look at, the answer of biggest threat will be one of 3 things. 1, dwindling savings if you don't currently have income. 2, no income if you currently have income, right? If your income goes away, if employment stability becomes an issue. Number 3 is if your savings is dwindled and your income is dwindled, then you start to go actually into debt. Some people will experience that in April, not a ton. And that's not to be dismissive of what they're dealing with. I'm just trying to play the percentages here. I think as we get further here into our program today, you could see that your biggest threat comes in that direction. So let's dig into May. We're asking the same questions. Like I mentioned at the top of the show today, this is not a super long show. Most of the work you're going to do today is not with me. You're going to grab your calendar, walk through this with your significant other or the man in the mirror. All right, May. Now this one's a little tough, right? I am fully mentally prepared, easily mentally prepared to be in my house all of April. So I have thought through the financial ramifications of this. I've thought through the financial ramifications of my business being fully remote for the month of April. But what happens if it stretches into the May? What are some of the realities of that from a personal finance standpoint? Number 1, what is my biggest strength going into May? If you have the 3 months emergency reserve and you still have income, then your strength is still your income and your emergency reserve. But what if one of those starts to falter a little bit? What if the stability of your employment starts to falter? Then your biggest strength is your emergency fund. I bring this up for a very pragmatic reason. I think there's so many things that are stressful right now. Personal health, relationships, spirituality, mental health, financially, everything, emotionally, all these things. That if you don't separate the problems, right, they begin to feel unsolvable. And beyond that, if you don't look at each one of those categories and identify what your biggest strengths are, the things you can lean on when things get hard, then each of those categories can begin to feel impossible. So I always like to know what is the best thing I got going for me financially in any given challenge. All right, so that's May, biggest strength. How about your biggest threat in May? It may be the same threat that you had in April, but for others, as this continues and as it drags on, new threats are going to begin to emerge. I personally don't believe that any of the threats that you and I are going to identify in these timeframes for ourselves, none of them are going to be market related, stock market related. I just still don't see that as a problem. Arguably, some people may view the biggest strength they have right now is the ability to continue to invest in a fallen or devalued market, which over the long term creates a lot of great opportunity. You know, the harsh reality of this situation, and this is the reason we're doing the topic today. I guess I should have covered this at the beginning. As we begin to try to fix some financial lives which are already broken and prevent others from living that same reality, we at Hey Money and Your Money Line have started to identify some bigger issues that are coming in the coming months that are on the way, right? And so it's weird, right? Because it's not necessarily that I want to get all of these problems out to you right now, because sometimes there's not enough information for a solution to be had. So it just feels cynical where it feels like piling on or salting wounds. I'll give you an example, but in me giving you this example, it will both terrify you and also give you no solution. So you're going to see why we just don't pile these things on. We know they're coming, and we're trying to identify the strengths and the threats that exist within each one of these categories. But this one's on a pretty immediate horizon. And speaking of May, it's going to begin to happen in May. To say it's one of my biggest concerns is strange, because it doesn't necessarily personally affect me, but it affects all of us. And it's just a big problem in terms of numbers. I think graduating seniors coming out of college are in really big trouble. I've always felt like you can only prepare yourself so much in your financial life before luck and timing and circumstance get involved. So you've got this group of graduating seniors who spent 4 years and the better part of 16 years in school and preparing for this moment. You know, I want to be a nurse. I want to be a salesperson. I want to be a dentist, whatever. You got all these dreams, and you've got those folks that have no idea what they want to do yet. But as is tradition, and sometimes you find yourself post-graduation with a little cushion from your parents, traveling around Europe, whatever, working retail, being a server, being in the hospitality industry, these sorts of things. Everything I just described to you, other than being a nurse, because we are hearing reports of, final year med students just being put into service right away. It's like, look, we're not going to teach anything else. We need the hands. Let's go. Short of being put into medical service right away, like that whole first year experience of being a working person is kind of put on hold. And what are the ramifications of that? What are the ramifications of having no student loan relief because the stimulus isn't for the loans that haven't happened yet, because those loans don't begin to become due until January of 2021. From an income perspective, if those people are still being claimed as a dependent on their parents' taxes and they're above 16 years old or older than 16, then there's no stimulus for them anyway. And then they don't have mortgages, so there's no relief there. That's a really tough thing. See what I'm saying? That's why we don't bring up these things. There's probably 30 of these major weird little problems that are going to crop up. Enough of that. All right, so again, in May, biggest strength, biggest weakness. Let's head to June. This is hard. Admittedly, when I was working on this today, I started thinking through my own life in June and what in the world is going to be going on. We all get to, it's like it's doing like a baby pool. When you have a friend who's having a child and you're like, try to guess the weight and the gender and the name and all these other things about the baby and when the baby arrives. I feel like in many cases, a lot of us are trying to just like identify the virus peak on a calendar without any particular scientific background as just a way to make us feel better. My wife and I do it every day. We're like, all right, where are you mentally? All right, May 11th. May 11th is okay. That's when you think. We don't know, right? June's tough, right? Because whereas I'm mentally prepared to get through April, and arguably I'm mentally prepared to be in here through the end of May. What happens in June? What does it even begin to look like? I think if we're still in here all throughout May, I think employment gets even rockier. That's when we reach those 25 to 30, 35% unemployment numbers. And so whereas in the past, maybe your biggest strength was your employment security. Is it not? I mean, is it in June? And I know it feels pointless to go through this exercise, but I don't know. I find it pragmatic. I find doing this helps you make better decisions. Because if you find that your plan falls apart in 45 days, yet you're acting like you don't have that big of a problem right now, I would argue that this is a good use of a wake-up call. What's the biggest threat in June? Well, let's say you are the type of person that lost their job right at the outset of this whole thing, and you had an emergency fund. So you're going to use your emergency fund through most of March, April, and May, and you're to June. Now your biggest threat is that you don't have an emergency fund, right? You see how this develops. Typically, when we do financial problem solving for people, this is a highly unusual problem. Usually the problem is something like, wow, I just had to come to Jesus moment and understanding that I'm not prepared for retirement. The shock is setting in. What do I do? Here's what to do. Then the person gets bored, and then you have to keep them motivated until that boredom turns into discipline. And there you go. I think part of the challenge that a lot of us are facing is that right now, this period, this next 8 weeks, It's really about turning boredom into discipline. That once you feel like, it's fine, my tolerance for the situation has grown, you kind of have to change your temperature a little bit and make sure that that turns into discipline and not complacency. I mean, let's look beyond June. Well, what's beyond June? I mean, it's sort of a ridiculous exercise at this point. Biggest strength beyond June. Well, if you've got more than a 3-month emergency fund, that's your biggest strength. Beyond that, what's the threat? I guess that's the one where we just don't know. What is the biggest financial threat to your life if we're not out of this beyond June, if we creep into July? My guess is if that's the issue, we will have another stimulus plan come in May. I was on a radio show earlier today, and I'm not a prediction guy, but I'll tell you, my prediction is if we don't start to get through this come mid-May, I think by the end of May, there will be another stimulus plan. Because otherwise, what is that one-time stimulus payment going to do? Some people are getting unemployment. Some people aren't. How will that grow? Because as unemployment numbers continue to increase, and there is already budget for people to get enhanced unemployment through July, there'll need to be another stimulus plan. Anyway, fun times. Happy Sunday to you. Look, here's what I'm going to go do. I'm going to go install some pendant lights and hope that I'm on tomorrow's show. Because you can't miss day 15. Because if you're not here for day 15, then I can't be here for day 16 because I can't miss the day. Go to callheymoney.com right now. Use the offer code CHEESE. Honestly, if you do it right now and you can set an appointment, you can pick your time this week and talk to one of our experts, and let's just get it going. It's a $17.99 commitment a month using the offer code CHEESE, and you will have someone like me, but a lot smarter and arguably better looking, walk you through this. All right, that's all I have for you. I'm going to go do a home improvement project. It's on my honey-do list, but of course it also has been on my honey-do list prior to the pandemic. Be with your friends, be with your family. Don't keep your stress on the inside. We'll get through this. All right, I'll see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. right here on whatever we call this show.